Hello, and welcome in my little corner of the internet. My name is Jess, and here we read all kinds of stories. Some are true stories, some fiction, and some true stories that we sometimes wish were fiction. We do them all. So if you're into intriguing, dark, and scary tales, it's time to kick back, chill, and relax. If you're new here, welcome. Stay a bit, see if you like it. We'd love to have you. Now tonight's chapter. The Silver Wolf Queen. Chapter 10. Shadows. The forest was too quiet. Not silent. Silence belonged to empty places. This forest was alive, breathing around Darius with the slow rhythm of something ancient. Water dripped from towering pines after 3 days of relentless rain, while a cool mist drifted between the massive trunks, swallowing anything more than 50 yards away. Yet something had changed. Every instinct he'd developed over 20 years as a tracker was whispering the same warning. You're no longer the only hunter. Darius stood motionless on the narrow game trail, allowing the forest to settle around him. Most people believed tracking was about following footprints. Those people had never survived a real hunt. Tracking was listening, watching, feeling. The smallest disturbance could reveal an entire story. A raven that suddenly refused to land. A squirrel frozen halfway up a tree. The absence of birdsong where birds should have been singing. The forest was speaking, and it was telling him someone else was here. He slowly crouched beside a patch of wet earth. At first glance, the mud appeared untouched, but years of experience taught him to ignore first glances. Someone had stepped here. Not recently enough to leave a clean footprint, but recently enough to compress the soil beneath the moss. Light, careful, professional. The stranger knew how to move through the wilderness. Darius brushed a finger across the ground before standing again. Interesting, very interesting. For weeks he'd been following hidden patrols belonging to the mysterious Silver Wolves. Their movements were disciplined but predictable once he understood their patterns. This was different. The trail felt independent, like another predator hunting the same prey. His hand rested loosely near the knife on his belt as he continued forward, not because he expected a fight, but because habits kept experienced men alive. The mist thickened as the path climbed higher into the mountains. Massive boulders emerged from the fog like sleeping giants. Ancient trees twisted skyward, their roots wrapping around weathered stone walls, almost completely reclaimed by nature. Darius stopped again. The wall hadn't formed naturally. Someone had built it. Centuries ago, perhaps. He ran his fingers across the cold stone. The workmanship fascinated him. No mortar. No visible joins. Each block fitted perfectly against the next, despite surviving countless winters. Whoever built this place had possessed remarkable skill. As he examined the wall, something caught his eye. A carving, almost invisible beneath layers of moss. He carefully scraped away the green growth with the edge of his knife. A crescent moon appeared, encircled by delicate silver vines. The same symbol. Again, his heartbeat quickened. This was the 3rd time he'd found that emblem during the past 2 days. Not coincidence. Confirmation. The old stories had been true. The Silver Kingdom hadn't vanished. It had simply hidden. Darius stepped back, studying the ruins surrounding him. Broken columns. Collapsed archways. Stone pathways disappearing beneath centuries of roots. This wasn't an isolated outpost. It was the outer edge of something much larger. A forgotten civilization. He reached for the leather notebook tucked inside his satchel and began sketching the ruins with practiced precision. Measurements. Directions, symbols, distances. Every detail mattered. One day, someone else might need these notes. Or perhaps, he smiled faintly. Perhaps only he would. A sudden crack echoed through the forest. Not loud, just the snap of a twig somewhere beyond the mist. Darius closed the notebook immediately. His eyes lifted, scanning. The forest returned to stillness. Slowly, almost casually, he spoke into the empty woods. "You've been following me since sunrise." Only silence answered. He smiled. "I'd almost be offended if you stopped now." For several long moments, nothing happened. Then a voice drifted through the mist. Calm, confident, close enough that it should have startled him. Instead, it made him grin. "I was beginning to wonder how long it would take you." Darius didn't move, didn't even look toward the voice. Because giving away what you knew was the fastest way to lose an advantage. "Depends," he replied evenly. "Were you hoping I'd notice sooner?" A soft chuckle floated between the trees. "No." The unseen stranger paused. "I was hoping you were worth finding." The mist shifted gently. A dark silhouette appeared between two ancient pines. Still too far away to make out a face. Still hidden enough to remain a mystery. But unmistakably human. And standing directly in Darius's path. For several long seconds, neither man moved. Mist drifted between the towering pines, wrapping the forest in a pale veil. Rainwater continued dripping from the branches overhead, the only sound breaking the heavy silence. Darius studied the stranger carefully. He was younger than expected, perhaps 30. Lean, broad-shouldered, and dressed in dark leather traveling gear that had clearly been made for function rather than appearance. 2 hunting knives rested across his back, while a weathered cloak hung loosely around his shoulders. Nothing about the man looked accidental. Everything had been chosen for survival. "You've come a long way," the stranger said at last. A faint smile crossed the man's face. "I expected the famous tracker to have more gray hair. I expected whoever had been stalking me to be harder to find. I wasn't hiding." No. The stranger folded his arms. "If I'd wanted to stay hidden, you never would have known I was here." Darius considered the statement. It wasn't arrogance. It was confidence. There was a difference. "My name is Rowan." "Darius." "I know." That single reply raised more questions than answers. Very few people knew Darius by reputation. Fewer still would recognize him on sight. "You've been looking for me." "Yes." "Why?" Rowan glanced toward the ancient stone ruins disappearing into the mist. "Because you're getting too close." "To what?" The younger man met his eyes. "The truth." Silence settled between them again. Darius had spent weeks chasing rumors through the forest of no return. Ancient ruins, forgotten symbols, hidden patrols. Every discovery had pointed toward one impossible conclusion. The silver wolves had survived. And judging by Rowan's expression, he had just confirmed it. "Do you belong to them?" Darius asked. Rowan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he let out a slow breath. "I belong to people who have spent generations protecting their home." "So that's a yes." "It's the only answer you're getting." Darius couldn't help smiling. "I've missed conversations like this." Rowan raised an eyebrow. Most people either lie badly or tell the truth too quickly. For the first time, Rowan actually laughed. A short, quiet laugh. "You really are different from the stories." "I'm almost afraid to ask what the stories say." "That you're impossible to lose." "And?" "That once you start hunting something." Rowan's smile faded. "You never stop." Before Darius could reply, both men froze. A distant howl echoed through the forest. Low. Urgent. Not a wolf's hunting call. A warning. Rowan's head turned immediately toward the sound. His calm expression vanished. They've found us. Darius frowned. They? Rowan looked back at him. For the first time since meeting him, there was genuine concern in his eyes. We're both about to have a very bad day. The howl echoed again. Closer this time. Long. Sharp. Urgent. It wasn't the cry of a hunting wolf. It was a signal. Rowan's eyes swept through the forest, searching the mist that drifted between the towering pines. They're moving faster than I expected. Darius remained perfectly still. You know who's out there? Rowan nodded once. I do. And? The younger man hesitated. Not because he was afraid. Because he was deciding how much truth to reveal. They aren't silver wolves. That answer immediately caught Darius's attention. Then, who are they? Rowan looked toward the trees. The ravens. The name meant nothing to Darius. His expression showed it. Rowan noticed. Then you've never crossed paths with them? Should I have? No. A faint smile touched Rowan's face. If you had, you wouldn't be asking. Another howl drifted through the trees. This one answered by a second call somewhere farther east. The sound bounced through the mountains. A network of signals. Professionals communicating over long distances. Darius finally understood. They're surrounding us. Slowly. How many? Rowan didn't answer. He simply listened. Counting. Measuring the distance between each call. When he finally spoke, his voice had grown noticeably quieter. Too many. Darius slipped his notebook back inside his satchel. So, he adjusted the strap over his shoulder. What exactly did you do to upset them? Rowan gave a tired laugh. I stopped following orders. Yep, that'll do it. I imagine you've had similar experiences. A few. Neither man smiled. Because neither considered the situation amusing anymore. The forest had changed. Moments ago, it had merely felt quiet. Now it felt occupied. Like invisible eyes followed every movement. Darius had hunted enough dangerous men to recognize the feeling. Someone had already chosen where this fight would happen. And it wasn't him. Several miles away, the hidden valley carried on with its mourning. Children ran through the village square. Blacksmiths worked glowing steel inside open forges. Farmers laughed as they repaired storm-damaged fences. To anyone watching, it looked peaceful. Ivy wished she could enjoy it. Instead, an uneasy feeling refused to leave her. She stood beside the river that flowed through the valley, watching sunlight dance across its surface. The water moved gently, calmly, without fear. I envy it. Celine looked up from the basket of herbs she had been sorting. The river. It always knows where it's going. The elderly woman smiled softly. You think you don't? Ivy skipped a small stone across the water. It bounced twice before disappearing beneath the current. I know where I'm supposed to end up. She sighed. I just have no idea how to get there. Celine walked over and stood beside her. When I was young. The old woman smiled at the memory. I thought queens were born knowing everything. And now? Now I know they spend most of their lives pretending. That made Ivy laugh. A real laugh. The first in days. Celine smiled. Leadership isn't about having every answer. She pointed toward the village. It's about making sure people don't lose hope while you're searching for them. Ivy looked around the valley. Children. Families. Warriors. People who had survived generations in hiding. They weren't looking for perfection. They were looking for someone willing to walk in front when the path became dangerous. For the first time, that responsibility didn't terrify her quite as much. It still frightened her. Just a little less. Far above the valley, hidden among the cliffs, Orion watched the mountains. The wind carried scents from miles away. Most were familiar. Pine, rain, wild deer. Then, his ears twitched. A scent he hadn't detected in centuries drifted faintly through the air. Human. More than one. His golden eyes narrowed. The hunt had just changed. Orion didn't move. From the highest cliff overlooking the hidden valley, he stood as still as the mountain itself. The breeze tugged gently at his silver fur while his nose tested the air again. There it was. Faint. Almost lost beneath the scent of wet pine and rain-soaked earth. Human. Not one. Several. His ears flattened. That alone was enough to make the ravens nesting on the cliff face take flight. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Without another thought, Orion leapt from the rocks. His enormous body landed silently on the forest floor nearly 20 feet below before disappearing between the trees. He moved with astonishing speed. Branches barely stirred as he passed. To anyone watching, it would have looked as though the forest itself had come alive. Miles away, Darius and Rowan had already left the old ruins behind. Neither trusted the clearing anymore. The ravens knew they had met. Standing still was no longer an option. They moved through the forest side by side, speaking only when necessary. "You still haven't answered my question," Darius said quietly. "Which one? Why warn me?" Rowan stepped over a fallen log. "Because I know what happens if the ravens find the valley." "You've seen it before?" "I've seen villages disappear." His voice carried no drama, only memory. They don't leave witnesses. Darius glanced sideways at him. "And you worked with them?" "I survived with them." There was a difference. A very big difference. The tracker nodded slowly. For the first time since entering the forest of no return, he wasn't chasing a mystery. He was walking beside one. Suddenly Rowan stopped. His hand shot out, catching Darius by the shoulder. "Don't move." Darius froze. "What is it?" Rowan pointed toward the muddy ground ahead. At first Darius saw nothing. Then, the shape became clear. A footprint. Fresh. Deep. Military issue. Not Rowan's. Not his. Someone had crossed their path less than 5 minutes earlier. Neither man spoke. They didn't need to. Both already understood. The ravens were no longer searching. They had found the trail. Back inside the hidden valley, the afternoon bell echoed from the Hall of Kings. One by one, warriors gathered inside the council chamber. Arya arrived first. Then Selene. Then the patrol leaders from the northern and eastern borders. Their expressions alone told Ivy this wasn't a routine meeting. Orion entered last. The massive wolf crossed the chamber without a sound. When he finally looked at Ivy, she knew. Something had happened. "What is it?" she asked. Orion's voice entered every mind in the room. "Humans." The chamber fell silent. Several of them. Arya's face hardened. "How close?" "Closer than they've ever been." A murmur spread through the room. One of the older warriors clenched his fists. "They've found us." Orion shook his head. "Not yet." That single word brought a small measure of relief. Small. "But they will," Selene whispered. No one argued. Because everyone knew she was right. Orion turned toward Ivy. His golden eyes held hers. "The time for hiding is ending." The words settled over the chamber like a storm cloud. For 1,000 years, the silver wolves had survived by remaining invisible. Now, that age was coming to an end. Ivy slowly rose to her feet. She looked around the room. At the warriors. The elders. The people who had protected this kingdom for generations. Fear filled many of their faces. Hope filled very few. She drew a slow breath. then spoke. If they're coming, then we stop waiting for them. Silence. Then, for the first time in many years, several warriors smiled. Not because the danger had passed, because their queen had finally chosen to face it. Far beyond the mountains, a black raven landed on the arm of a stone throne. Malachar removed the small message tied to its leg. He read it once, then smiled. He rose slowly. The game is over. Prepare the army. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. Inside the throne room, war had taken its first breath. And that's where we'll leave the story for now. For the first time in 1,000 years, the silver wolves know the forest can no longer keep them hidden forever. The enemy is moving, the distance between hunter and hunted is shrinking, and the safety they've depended on for generations is beginning to disappear. Darius has uncovered more than ancient ruins. He's found Rowan, a man who knows the truth about the ravens, and a truth dangerous enough to make him betray the very people he once served. But if Rowan is running from Malachar, one question remains. What secret is worth risking your life to protect? Back in the Hidden Valley, Ivy has taken her first real step as queen. She no longer sees herself as the frightened Omega cast into the forest of no return. She's beginning to understand that leadership isn't about waiting for danger to arrive. It's about choosing where you'll make your stand. In the next chapter, Rowan's past will finally catch up with him. The ravens will reveal just how deadly they truly are, and Ivy will make a decision that changes the future of the Silver Wolves forever. If you're enjoying the Silver Wolf Queen, every subscriber brings us one step closer to our next community milestone and helps this amazing community continue to grow, so please help us by subscribing. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. I always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel across the world. Here's some food for thought. The strongest fortress isn't built from stone. It's built from the people willing to stand together when the walls finally begin to fall. Until next time, be blessed and stay safe out there.